Good evening, everyone. We want to call to order to consider an appeal by 38 East Court LLC of the Planning Commission's decision denying a request for a zoning special exception made by the applicant to allow short-term rentals at 713 Cranford Drive. Mr. Anderson will speak. Call the roll. Okay. Brown, Clark, Herbie, here. Holt, here. Johnson, Moore,
Here.
Sylvester.
Sally, my understanding is that the Board of Zoning Appeals does not include Mr. Johnson
And Mr. Brown.
and Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
I would move to excuse Councilwoman Clark and Councilwoman Moore and note if they arrive later.
Second.
Call the roll, or call the motion.
On the roll. On the motion.
Can we have a roll on the motion, Sally?
I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I was just finishing up what you motioned. Let's see. Herbie,
Yes?
Holt. Yes. Sylvester. Three of us are here and accounted for, and
And now we need to get you presiding officer.
okay.
I move to that first Vice Mayor Denise Holt serve as the presiding officer.
All in favor? All in favor?
Aye.
That's passed. Okay. As I stated, the reason why we're here, Mr. Anderson will speak first, and then the complainant will be allowed to speak, and after that, we will allow 3 people from each side to speak for a maximum of 5 minutes, and I urge you to stay on task. Now I turn it over to Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Mrs. Holt. My name is Chris Anderson. I'm the Community Development Director and Zoning Administrator for the City of Forest Park. In that role, I serve as the staff liaison for the Planning Commission. What you have tonight before you is an appeal of the Planning Commission's refusal to grant a special exception to allow short-term rental at 713 Cranford Drive. The city classified short-term rentals as a special exception in 2020 by ordinance of City Council. The property was purchased by 38 East Court LLC also in 2020, renovated for a number of months, and then earlier this year began to be offered for short-term rentals through Airbnb.com. We received a complaint from one of the neighbors in a letter that was addressed to me, and after taking a look at the letter and a little bit of additional investigation, I issued a notice of zoning violation to the owner for operating the Airbnb short-term rental without obtaining a special exception. The owner then applied for the special exception with the Planning Commission. And I'll go over briefly the procedures associated with that. The Planning Commission, when they receive an application for special exception, they hold a public hearing that is advertised in a newspaper of general circulation. We also provide notification to the property owners that are directly adjacent or across the street from the subject property, in this case 713 Cranford. And that notice is by mail. The public hearing itself is open to people who want to speak either for or against. In any case, that notification was given at least 10 days in advance of the Planning Commission hearing, which was scheduled for July 20th. At the hearing, the Planning Commission took sworn testimony from the applicant and from approximately 7 other interested persons. And you have the summary of that in the Planning Commission minutes that were attached to my report. The order was the applicant, members of the public, and then the applicant had a chance to speak again to rebut any points that may have been made by in opposition to the application, and then final opening for members of the public. What the Planning Commission did then, after discussion, after the hearing was closed and they held a discussion, was to issue 8 findings of fact, and those were written out and later transmitted to the applicant. The findings of fact dealt with the information surrounding the application, the conditions on the ground in the neighborhood, and the testimony at the hearing. They then evaluated the application against 5 standards for special exception that are written out in the zoning ordinance. And they determined that it only met 2 of those. Due to that, the Planning Commission voted on the application and voted 1 in favor and 4 against. So that motion became a refusal to grant the special exception. Very quickly, the applicant subsequently appealed that decision. The procedures for that appeal are contained in the zoning ordinance, and the appeal does go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is constituted from the 5 members of council who are not on the Planning Commission. The Board of Zoning Appeals only meets as needed. I think the last time we met was in 2013. Be that as it may, the Board of Zoning Appeals has its own notification procedures and timelines. It's, again, a 10-day minimum notice. It includes an advertisement in the newspaper, mailing to adjacent property owners, and for this case, a sign in the yard of the property. We had a little bit of difficulty with that sign, but I managed to, on the 4th try, to get it to stay. Just a couple other things to review. When someone files an appeal, they're asking you to reverse, either in whole or in part, the decision of the Planning Commission. And for that, they need a reason to cite an error, essentially, that the Planning Commission made. In the letter, and that is attached to my report as well, from the applicant, she mainly cites that the Planning Commission had a letter dated May 25th from the next door neighbor, the neighbor next door to 713 Cranford. That letter had been in my office from that time. It predated the notice of zoning violation, and it was contained in the file for the application for special exception. I did not make a point of showing this letter to the applicant. although it was available for anybody to see under our open records laws. And I'll just digress one moment to note that the reason that I did that is because that is a practice that we have in our office for code enforcement to essentially protect people who want to make a complaint. They're allowed to do it anonymously. In this case, it was not anonymous. But I don't go to special steps to make sure that the person being complained on sees the complaint. They can do that. They can request that if they want to. So in any case, that letter had been available all the while that this case has been going on. It was included with my staff report to the Planning Commission because I cited some of the language in the letter. And even at that point, the applicant had the opportunity to postpone the proceeding if they wanted to take the letter and challenge it or consult with somebody about it. That request was not made. The applicant also alleges that the Planning Commission arrived at a biased decision as a result of the letter. I would dispute that characterization. The Planning Commission offered several opportunities to the applicant to make her case before the Planning Commission above and beyond what is normal. Not only did she have the opportunity to testify as well as have supporters testify, she was given an opportunity to rebut people that spoke against the application, and then took upon herself an opportunity to speak during a separate part of the meeting after the public hearing was closed to provide additional information regarding the application, for which the Planning Commission allowed her to do.
No, ma'am.
As I mentioned earlier, the Planning Commission did follow their procedures and issued findings of fact associated with this case and evaluated the application against a set of criteria that every other special exception application is evaluated against, and made that determination based upon that. And so that would conclude my report, other than to note that I did suggest some findings of fact for this board and motions.
I have two questions for you. In the 8 points cited, 2 of them address complaints. Was prompted by demonstrated nuisance conditions affecting neighbors and received complaints. Were there more complaints than just the one letter?
We had the one letter, and then we had a call from 2 separate residences.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we will hear from the complainant.
Anybody who wants to speak should stand up. Anybody who wants to speak should stand up and be sworn in at this time. Excuse me. We're going to swear everyone in. It's not an opportunity right now to speak. The public hearing will begin as soon as everyone's sworn in.
The ones for and against.
For and against. Anybody who wants to speak this evening, go ahead and be sworn in at this time. Raise your right hand. I pledge to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth this evening, so help me God. All yeses. Okay.
Okay.
Are you good to, anybody in favor can come forward and speak at this time?
The ones that are in favor can come and speak at this time.
Well, my name is Esther Zego. I'm talking in regards Rahel Sharo, that he mentioned that there was a complaint to two neighbors, which is not correct. It was only one neighbor that she is against personally attacking her. And secondly, he was saying that she got a letter, he got a letter May, he said, which is not correct. She just get it recently. So it just is like against personal doing this, which we are not happy. We are here to help the community, to work hard and to revitalize and work and make it look beautiful Forest Park. It's not about trying to do something that's not good. Like we're trying to create business, we're trying to improve the neighborhood. And we work hard in this neighborhood. I myself are investor in this neighborhood, and I really like it to do business in here, but we didn't get opportunity to do. Like last time we were here, they wouldn't let us do any kind of business. We had another lady, she was trying to apply for a business, and they rejected her too. So why is Forest Park is not allowing business to maintain? Why can't we do more businesses and grow the community? It's like a dead zone in here. We need to grow the community, allow businesses to happen and to grow. We are not happy for what they are talking about.
I had a question. Forest Park is always interested in attracting businesses, but we don't support businesses in residential areas.
Well, if Airbnb is not only in Forest Park, it's in everywhere right now.
Now we can,
And
excuse me, ma'am, we only want to discuss 713 Cranford. No
okay, well, that's what I'm going to talk, okay. When we do Airbnb, we are improving the neighborhood, we bring in business. If they come here, guests come here, they go to restaurant, they go to park, everywhere to get business. So how do we get to improve the community, to grow the community? If Airbnb allowed, we could have, the restaurants will be busy, the plazas will be busy, everything will be vibrant. When I go, every time I drive by Winter Road, it's very slow and dead. Why can't we bring a good restaurants, cafe shop, and this kind of businesses? If guests come from out of town and there is a guest around the neighborhood, it will grow. So I ask you to think about it and help us grow the community all together. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Madam Vice Mayor, could they please sign their names and information for the minutes?
Ma'am, can you please sign in, please?
Thank you.
Was she sworn in? Ma'am, were you sworn in?
Okay.
Raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I'm going to sign in.
Since you just got in, our comments should be limited to 5 minutes.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rahel, and I'm here on behalf of 38 East Court LLC. And we are here talking about today about the appeal for the special exemption to do a short-term rental in Forest Park. And so first of all, there was an ordinance that was passed last year to approve to do short-term rentals. Isn't that correct? I believe so. So now we can discuss about what qualifies for a special exception. The first thing issue is it mentions the public's health, safety, morals, welfare, and interest, including but not exclusively such factors as safety and traffic conditions, surrounding housing, or property values, and the socioeconomic impact on people working or living in the area surrounding the proposed development. So based on number one, pretty much what we did was we took a distressed property, renovated it, increased property values, which is pretty much increasing the welfare and the socioeconomic of the neighborhood. If you actually currently look at right now on Zillow and just look at Zestimates, this property is actually listed as one of the highest in value, which when done multiple times in different areas of Forest Park, I will mention, I have been so a part of Forest Park in revitalizing the neighborhood since 2017. A few streets that I've been a part of is on Longacre, another one is Kingsbury, another one is Inner Circle, another one is Fremantle.
Can we just pass on?
Okay, no worries, okay. So, and then it also talks about such factors such as safety, okay? First of all, safety, privacy, and also making sure that everyone is safe. That is actually a high standard for short-term rental host, okay? So because we have cameras to monitor what goes on around the property. Another thing is that we also make sure that any guest who steps foot into that property, whoever is booking, they have to show their ID. We actually have like procedures and standards that we follow to make sure that not only that our guests are safe, but also the surrounding areas. So this is a very safe business, depending on who's regulating it and what type of standards they follow. As well, we also have like a house manual, okay? We have a house manual, and in that house manual, we have a 2-page front and back, about 8 font, 9 font of house rules. We're very strict with our rules, just like how Forest Park is very strict with the upkeep of the neighborhood and all of that stuff. I also do let my guests know that, Thursday night is take out the trash and then put it back Friday whenever the trash comes. So just small things like this. I'm very detailed oriented, and I make sure that my guests are aware of, to maintain the property of the area. And honestly, the guests that we've had so far, they were actually referred to by people, they're actually family members of people who live in the area, that they don't want to put their family in a hotel. They want to have space. They want to not have to be confined in a small space because of COVID. So staying in like a bigger space, and then also it's more economically feasible to stay in this type of space. Not only that, but I know a few of you guys weren't here during the time of the application, but also during the time of COVID, when the hotels were shut down, then short-term rentals provide a necessity to provide house. So also another thing is that we're also providing housing. A few guests that we had were moving from out of town, and then they had a gap within their closing, so they didn't have a place to stay. They didn't want to sign like a year or 2-year lease when they knew that they just needed a place to stay for a short term. So that's another way how we provide for people in the community and in the area. So that's that. Number 2 is whether a nuisance caused by or increased by noise, litter, or lighting conditions will be created and cannot be controlled. First of all, in terms of like noise and all of that kind of stuff, even though I'm not sure if she's here today, yes she is, even though we did had a few complaints that were not even notified to the people of the property, had no idea until the papers were passed out during the meeting when it was when 38 East Court Street was trying to apply to do a special exemption. So I honestly felt like this was like a slap in the face. Like, you know, you don't tell people about what neighbor complaints are going on until the time is convenient for you to just slap it into somebody's face and say, hey, you know, because of this, which you didn't even know about, by the way, is one of the reasons why we're not accepting you. Okay. Okay, and then also, number 3 is whether the proposed development and attendant special exception would protect and preserve the character, attraction, and orderly development of the affected district. So in terms of character and attraction, we are actually one of the most attractive properties on that street. Please do a drive-by. Look on realtor.com what we have done to the property. Before and after, it is a transformation, and this is what we do for a living. What we do for a living is we wanna improve the neighborhood. This is like, you know, where we live, this is our livelihood, and so we actually do care about our city and improving it and making it better, and we just want a chance. Number 4.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Comments.
Okay.
Is there anyone else for? That's 4.
Good
Please
afternoon.
limit your comments to 5 minutes and stay on task. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jim Mcrae. I'm a resident of Forest Park for about 26 years. I'm also a real estate developer for 30 plus years. I'd like to thank the City Council for allowing us this opportunity to speak today. I'd submit that our charge here is to consider the ordinance regarding short-term rentals for this specific special exception and on its merits. The language of the ordinance is specific, it's measurable, it's current law, and it should be applied as written. While I may agree or disagree with the amendments that were made for short-term rentals, I had the opportunity from February to June of 2020 to voice my opinion and views and have them considered. Since then, we have had some of the best and brightest individuals from Forest Park community, the Zoning and Planning Board, the Legal Division, and City Council to vet these ordinances, argue the merits of the proposal, and finally, the ordinance was approved and signed into law. While some of the language may not be 100% to our liking, it represents the law at this time, and these standards are what individuals seeking special assessments should be held to. Now that the ordinance is law, we need to move forward to consider these special assessments on their specific merits and how they measure up to the 1 to 6 items that are laid out in the ordinance. The ordinance, these 1 to 6 criteria must be met or exceeded to qualify for a special assessment. The requester's responsibility is to prove how they meet or exceed these requirements and help us to understand how this business model will improve or enhance Forest Park and the benefits thereof. While I understand the public support and concerns, the ordinance clearly outlines the enforcement measures, be it registration, fines, late night events, licenses, so on and so forth, to govern and achieve the positive corrective behavior from clients and sponsors. Assessments can be increased for non-compliance, and the special exception can be terminated for cause at any point in time. So while unforeseen things may or may not happen, I truly believe Forest Park has the measures in place to address the items in a timely manner and prevent catastrophic situations that may or may not be brought up. I recall a time when there were concerns in Forest Park regarding group homes, foster care, limited daycare, Section 8 clients, so on and so forth. We updated the specific ordinances at those times. We put enforcement measures in place, embraced these programs, and now they are thriving in most situations. Change is the one thing that is constant, and this amendment reflects an era of new residential approaches. Our best efforts, information, research, community, and legal input derived the latest ordinance and this special exception process. While it may change in the future, we must, in good faith, provide the requester and the community the opportunity to prove how this special exception request benefits Forest Park or not, and make sure that the discussion is aligned to the 1 to 6 criteria that is outlined in the proposal. At the end of the day, this is all that we can ask from a community perspective and from a requester's perspective, such that we are fair to all parties and that Forest Park benefits in the long term from small business in general, and hopefully improves the communities and the tax base that we desperately need.
Thank you,
very
sir,
much.
for your comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak against? Against. We were allowing 3. Is there a pen there?
Here, there's pins here. Somebody
Will
must,
somebody take
somebody
the
take
sheet?
the sheet that was up there? What happened to the sign-in sheet that was up there? Well, the two people who spoke previously, look at their papers and see if they took.
Okay, sir, we will allow you 5 minutes. Yes, sir.
My name is Jeff Smith. I am an accountant, investor, and a friend of the property owner. I am also a former candidate for political office and someone who has monitored what goes on in my township. So I understand where each of you are coming from, is because I was a candidate and had people from both sides of an issue approach me about various subjects, and I understand where Rahel is coming from also as an investor, possibly interested in doing business in Forest Park. I was struck this evening. I spoke to the clerk, whose name I can't read and I don't remember. I apologize. And I asked the question, was the property owner notified of complaints in advance of the hearing? And she said she didn't know, but she directed me to a man, I believe his name is Chris, the planning man. And I asked him, I said, was the property owner notified? And he didn't answer my question in advance of this hearing, the first hearing that was held. And I was greatly disappointed in that, because not only have I been an observer of what goes on at council meetings and a candidate, but I'm also a next door neighbor to what used to be a property owned by a slumlord. And And I spoke to the township people at that time about the property. And they, like you, offered people the opportunity to complain anonymously about the property. Somebody in the neighborhood, I don't know who, but somebody in the neighborhood did complain, and Hamilton County came out and checked.
Are we talking about 713 Cranford Drive?
I'm trying to tie it to that property because I understand there have been complaints about the appearance of the property. So the Hamilton County did come out and check on it, so there was at least, they were notified. In this circumstance, as I understand it, from what I've gathered tonight and from what I've gathered with talking with Rahel, with whom I have a relationship of some time, this was dropped on her, and I don't think that, while I understand the need for confidentiality in complaints against a property, I think that you ought to consider the fact that she is not, that property owners ought to be given everything and asked to respond to it rather than have it dropped on them. As someone who is unfamiliar with this process, I don't think that happened, and I think that, as your webpage says, position for progress. I understand you have a need and a desire, and it's totally appropriate to do what you can to raise the level of the community in all ways. But I don't think that is done when, for instance, the Planning Commission gentleman says that, well, it was available. To me, you ought not to just say things are available. You ought to make them available. And you ought to give that information to somebody to let them respond or deal with it. So in closing, my request to you would be, I know Rahel. I know she is very fastidious about her properties. I would request, and I haven't gotten her approval on this, so maybe she disagrees with me, but I would request that, just as the gentleman before me suggested, that exceptions can be granted and they can be revoked, as I understand. And that being the case, I would ask that you make an exemption for, let's say, a period of a year or 6 months, some period of time during which you can monitor the property and how it's taken care of, with the owner of the property having an opportunity to fully know what is being complained about the property, and either deal with it the way that I think she will, or you revoke the exemption, and life goes on. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone here that wants to speak against?
Real quick, Denise, excuse me, Mr. or Mrs. Vice Mayor, I'm sorry. I wanted to clarify one thing, just for the public here. The original zoning hearing was not a result of complaints driven by the public. It was driven by the fact that the applicant was operating a short-term rental in violation without a license. That's what the original zoning hearing was for, not because there were complaints.
But those were part of that hearing.
They were brought up at the hearing, but the reason for the hearing was the fact that of non-compliance with the city ordinance that she was fully aware of.
Stop her. Stop her.
Ma'am,
On the record.
please. Only speak when you're acknowledged. And she's at the podium right now. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Viola Roseman. I live at 722 Cranford. I live directly across from Armstrong. So I was never notified of anything about an Airbnb until she brought it to my attention. Because I saw different people at this house constantly. There were cars parked on both sides of the street. There's a fire hydrant in front of my house. And they were parked along there. They're parked along, I live the second house from the corner. And I'm thinking, what's going on? There were people loud out in the street, on the sidewalks, in their yard, late at night. Now, it was mentioned that there's only one complaint. That's not true. Hers is just more the one that's out there. I've just complained to her, and once I found out what was going on, I kind of got involved. So my thing is, comments have been made that the neighborhood's been brought up because of this property. The property, the neighborhood looks the same. It's just the house has been painted, they got a new roof on it. It looks nicer on the outside, but it looked nice before. All the other homes around it look just as nice, so it wasn't brought, she didn't bring a ghetto up. Okay, so, and another thing about the business, it's a business. We live in, I didn't move into that area 24 years ago to be next to a business. My kids are grown now, but people who have small kids around, we don't want to see constant people moving in and out, men standing out in the yard talking in the middle of the night. And so it's just frustrating that they make it seem like it's not an attack on the person. It's an attack that this area is residential. And if they had checked into the zoning laws before they did what they did, they would know it shouldn't have been a good idea to do that, to move there. There were 3 signs put up, 3 public hearing signs put up over the course of a couple of weeks. And they were removed by this one person constantly. So if you don't have regard for the law when they put a sign up that says do not remove by the city of Forest Park, I don't think you have regard for the people around you or any other laws. So it's just, you just want your business and you want to make the money. So I've just, and another thing I don't like is you only notify 2 houses on both sides and 1 across the street. I never knew, like I said, until she let me know what was going on. I think people around the whole neighborhood should know. I made up flyers this past weekend and went up and down the street of Cranford, put one on everybody's door. I got it approved before I put it up there. So just, I think that should be considered. So when you have 3 people show up, that's because only 3 people are notified. But I don't want an Airbnb in my neighborhood. Maybe the people that want them, let them move into your neighborhood. I don't think you want them either. So that's about all I have.
I have one question. When you said there were cars, did anybody bother to count the increase in the number of cars and how many there were?
No, I called the police that day. It was a Saturday afternoon. I live, if you know where Carlsbad is, and Cranford, I'm the second house from the corner. There were cars on my side, all the way from the corner of Cranford, all the way down past the 3rd house. So and in the driveway, they had 3 cars parked in there. They were hanging out onto the street because there was no room for them to go further into that carport. So and one person, I pulled my car out to block them from parking. My neighbor across the street is an older couple, and his driveway began here. I put my car kind of here so nothing could come behind. Well, she was going to park there, and half of her car was sticking out. And I stopped her and said, "Excuse me, you're blocking the man's driveway." And she got out and went somewhere else. But I would say at least 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 15 cars. If you can get 3, 4 on the corner, then 2 or 3 between my house, and then come on the other side too. And I'm thinking to myself, don't these people, do they see the street is not too narrow for cars to be parked on both sides? And so I did call the police, and they did come out and make them move them. So it was just the host.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak for?
My name is Marlene Brown, and I live at 653 Cranford Drive. And first of all, I would like to respond to that young lady about telling people if you have problems across, with neighbors or whatever. We have neighbors that moved in. We've been living there for 33 years. We may have neighbors that a company, it's Cornrex Property Management, located in South Carolina. And they rented out 3 months ago to these people that live there.
Ma'am, are we speaking about 713
got
Cranford?
permission from the doctor to drive again, and we
Are
normally
we-
park in the garage.
Excuse me. Are we speaking about 713 Cranford? That's the only thing we will
650
be.
Cranford, they live across the street from us. And they've been there for 3 months, and I guess they assume because we never park in front of our house that it's theirs. One is a truck that is never moved, and I left it pee because it's,
Is this 713 Cranford you're speaking about?
653 Cranford.
Okay, ma'am, tonight we're only going to discuss 713 Cranford. If you have any complaints about somebody that's
I
doing
will. I'm getting
something
there.
on the street, then you can contact us later. But tonight, this is just a special hearing, just to hear information regarding
Okay, I
713
can tell you about the cars parked, because now they're parking in down in our end because they're not allowed, or can't park up there anymore, so we're getting the brunt down our end now. And so, when she says notify people, if they threaten you, I'm not ever gonna I've notified the police. We parked there one night, she sent me a threatening letter that I gave to one of your council members, and 2 days later, she hit my car. So if you don't want to talk about that, that's fine, but when companies like that buy your house and then rent them out or whatever, it's trouble. And these are private, like that lady said, these have all been nice neighborhood, nice houses. There might have been a couple of houses, that elderly people lived and were not kept up perfectly. But when she talks about up there, no, houses are still nice up there too. So I kind of checked to some of the things she had to say about our neighborhood on top and on the bottom and where those people live, so.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for your comments.
Thank
And
you.
as I said, if you have any other
Okay,
complaints about,
I have one question. May I bring this up to any of your people then? The problems we have when we're threatened? Thank you. I would like to talk to you later. Thank you.
thank you. Is there anyone else? One more person. We will allow time for 1, 2. Okay, we'll make it 2, 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Allie Armstrong, and I live at 719 Cranford. I've been very vocal on this issue, and I will continue to do so because it's critical we get this right for the sake of the community. Quite frankly, it's disgusting that me and my neighbors have had to fight so hard to get this illegal de facto hotel shut down. But here we are. From my estimation, this illegal commercial enterprise has been operating for over 6 months and has dumped at least 118 additional strangers with unknown criminal backgrounds into our community. As homeowners, taxpayers, and voters, this is not what we signed up for. In the cease and desist letter sent by the city in June, 38 East Court LLC was ordered to remove the Airbnb listing and stop operating by July 1st. But we all know that did not happen. Rules for thee, but not for me. Instead, what we got was check in after 4, check out at noon, suitcases rolling, strangers congregating outside, illegal parking, strangers with unknown criminal backgrounds, sexual predators, who knows, rolling in and out every 3 to 4 days. And we have had enough. But hey, I guess we just have to chalk that up to collateral damage for the sake of profit. It is clear these de facto hotels housing transient occupants have no business operating in our residential neighborhoods where we are trying to raise our families and enjoy a healthy quality of life. It's just not compatible, and we all know it. Because 38 East Court LLC took it upon themselves to solve for a problem that does not exist, what they have done is created serious problems that have put me and my neighborhood at risk, all due to their pursuit of profit. If you are someone who takes care of your property like we do on Cranford, and the house next to you is for sale, you better get nervous, because the unstaffed hotel is coming for you. And this is why we need you to take swift action to shut this operation down, or we won't have a neighborhood anymore. Because if it happened to me, it can happen to you.
Thank you for your comments, and we will allow one more 5 minutes. Thank you.
I'll sign this toward the end. I took my mask down because I just wanted to make sure that I'm heard clearly. There was a statement that says change.
Your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Pat Backus. I'm sorry. Says change is constant, but I just want to make a reminder. Should I look at y'all or should I? I'm used to looking at the whole audience. Okay. Is constant, but in a democracy, we have say into what that change will be and when it will occur, and not just a few will tell us what to do. The first 4 speakers who came that were in favor of this are all investors. And so when I aligned that up, I took the time to research the whole concept of Airbnb. If you go back to look at the original concept of Airbnb, it's not that they had reached self-actualization or had sat down with Gandhi and decided we're going to help the whole world. It was about profit. And Airbnb now was extremely profitable. So this is not about bettering a community. That's not what the foundation of it was. And if you want to know about a company, go back to look at the foundation. Go back to look at the foundation. That will tell you, that's the cornerstone, and that's what will tell you is the root, is the sole purpose that's anchoring and motivating. So I'm not coming as an investor, and most of us are not investors who are here that are against. We're homeowners, and we're residents of Forest Park. And I just wanted to say that as far as it being a safe community, that's exactly what we want. We want children to be able to come home as latchkey children. But you don't know who's next door. Who's next door? You've got a 16-year-old daughter. You've got a 14-year-old son. Who's next door? There's been no fingerprinting. Nobody knows. Are they watching you come and go? Do they know what time you leave? So when we're looking at safety, we're looking at having an anchor. We're looking at having neighbors who you know will watch out for you. These people are kind of coming and going, and we're not sure whether they should be watching out for us or we're watching out for them. The second thing I wanted to very quickly address was that this is a personal issue. It is not a personal issue at all. When it comes to saying, that the complaints were never addressed to them, we were never approached as to whether or not we wanted an Airbnb in our community. No focus groups were held. No open forums were held. There was nothing that said, we are investors and we want to come into the community, but we want to do it in a way that gets the support of the community. To my knowledge, that never happened. But instead, what did happen is, this is what we think you need. And so therefore, you're too stupid to think for yourselves, so we're going to come in and do it for you. Well, here is a news break. We really are smart. And we really do have a say. And every community that feels like people come in and tell them what to do, you automatically get a rejection. You say, well, how do you know that? Well, I've probably spent the last 40 years in the concept of community from the standpoint of health, but I know how to enter into a community, and I know how to be rejected by a community. And when you come in telling people what's best for them, you're going to automatically get a rejection. So if really this is all about being altruistic, and that house there on Cranford, then it would have been more about what is going to help the community most, such as working with a nonprofit to help families who otherwise would not be able to become homeowners. And so again, I want to reiterate that it's been said that if you say something enough times, people will believe it. Only gullible people believe it. Okay, only people who can be deceived will believe it. We're not being
Ma'am,
deceived.
you're moving kind of off track.
Okay.
We're
Oh, stay on there.
13 Cranford.
I'm sorry. I'll take it right back to that. I did not know that it was even operating until I found out about the letter. And I automatically said no, because I do know that our safety is at concern. I didn't even know, I was especially concerned when I found out that the city did not know it was even operating. And so when I did come to the meeting, and I did hear that, all of the law abiding and all of we want to help the community, but yet the very first step was to notify the community that the Airbnb was going to open, and that didn't even happen. So how law abiding, how we're really concerned about the community is that when the steps weren't even taken to make sure that it was done legally and in the right way. Thank you so much for reminding me of that, because I do have the gift of gab. So I do want to say that I am not in favor of this Airbnb, and it's nothing personal. I'm in favor of Airbnb on beachfronts, someplace where it's business, someplace where it's commercial, but not smack dab in the middle of a residential facility. I don't want to wake up every weekend and say who's coming next. And I want to end this with a statement that Ms. Armstrong said. The statement she said to me, and I don't know if she remembers saying it, she said, "Every Friday I become anxious at 4 p.m. because I never know who's going to be next door."
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, I'd like to address a couple comments that have been made. One is special exceptions are an exception. It is not a right. Number two, there's been a lot of emphasis by those in favor of this about the economic value that is received by purchasing these properties and renovating them. But that's not the only criteria. The criteria also addresses health and safety and the welfare. It addresses traffic problems and issues. And I have concerns about those aspects. It is not just an economic thing. It is how does it fit into the character of Forest Park. I know the C-section. I know the areas of the city and the limitations on our roadways. I've been here, my family has been here since 1963. Our roads were not made for the number of cars possessed by people today. We have so much traffic in our city that people have to park on the streets. And when it is increased by these kinds of situations, that is a hazard. So I'm very concerned about that increase for what is essentially a business. The other thing is I've heard comments about the fastidiousness of Ms. Rahel. If I am a fastidious person and I am purchasing a property for something like this, the first thing I would do would be to find out what are the rules and the regulations. And if the rules and the regulations say you're supposed to have a special exception, you should have that before you make the purchase and put out the money for that. So I'm very concerned about that. I don't think this fits in with the character of our community. And so I make a motion to adopt the 6 findings of fact as written in the staff report.
A second. It's been motion and second that we move to adopt the 6 findings of fact as written in the staff. Is that?
Mr. Chairman, you may want to just read them out.
Hold on, gotta find it. The ordinance number 1920 classified short-term rentals as a special exception. The ordinance was prompted by demonstrated nuisance conditions affecting neighbors at a house being used for short-term rentals. The special exception classification is intended for uses that may need to be limited with regard to location, concentration, and overall number in the city. The city has already received complaints about the short-term rental and transient occupants at 713 Cranford Drive. Short-term rental, especially with an owner who is not an occupant, introduces transient residents into an area where long-term residency is the norm. Parking on the property does not meet the zoning requirement for a new single family home, which is 4 spaces, 2 of which must be in a garage. The house does not have a garage, only a carport. On-street parking is limited to one side of the street and must be shared by all residents and guests in the vicinity. On-street parking on Cranford Drive is in limited supply, and any disruption of such has a detrimental effect on the surrounding properties.
the sound of that's a roll.
Roll call, yes. Herbie,
Yes.
Holt,
Yes.
Sylvester.
Second, Herbie.
Yes, I would also move to reject the appeal based upon the written record, the testimony provided at the hearing, and the adopted findings of facts, and uphold in full the Planning Commission's refusal of a special exception to allow short-term rental at 713 Cranford Drive.
It's been moved in second. All in favor?
Herbie,
A roll call. Yes.
Holt,
Yes.
Sylvester.
With no further business being taken at this time, the meeting is adjourned. Okay.
Just a rule of order. You're voting, but do we have a quorum of the city council to make that a
Yes, we do, Mayor.
legitimate vote?
I don't know if you were here earlier, there are 7 city council members. 2 are on the planning commission, which are not involved in this, and they're not here. So there are 5. So it's 3 of us here. It is a quorum.
Board of Zoning Appeals meeting, this is not a council meeting.
Don't we also get a chance to respond in
No, ma'am.
Okay.
The meeting is adjourned.